All right, today we are going to find angles. See, we already know how to find, say, the sine of 30 degrees. It's 1/2. But what if you know the sine of an angle is 1/2? Well, what angle is theta? Well, there's actually two answers to that. And we'll go through how to find that. So these are the same directions on your homework. Find the values of theta such that theta is between 0 and 2 pi, or 0 and 360, that make each of the following statements true. All right, and that's down here. I'm talking about this, but these are just some of the things I want you to do on your homework. Number one, I want you to state the reference angle. If you can find the reference angle, that will help you figure out what theta is. And there's, not always, but 90% of the time, two answers, because sine is positive in 1 and 2, negative in 3 and 4. So if sine is negative, the answer is either in quadrant 3 or 4. Both angles will give you that value. Number two, I want you to state the quadrant. If you can figure out the quadrant, I know if it's positive or negative. Or if I know it's positive or negative, I can figure out the quadrant, which then leads me to that angle. State the angles in degrees, and also state the angles in radians. Now, some information that will really help on this homework. And these numbers are just from that little table, if you remember the table where I had sine, cosine, tangent of 0, 30, 45, 60, and 90. The ordered pair at 0 degrees or 0 radians is the ordered pair 1, 0. And remember, it's cosine sine. 30 degrees, or pi over 6, the ordered pair is square root 3 over 2 and 1/2. That's why we did that unit circle activity yesterday, or the last assignment. 45 degrees, or pi over 4, the ordered pair is square root of 2 over 2, square root of 2 over 2, so the sine of pi over 4 is square root of 2 over 2. 60 degrees, or pi over 3, the ordered pair is 1/2, square root 3 over 2. 90 degrees, the ordered pair is 0, 1. 180 degrees, it's negative 1, 0. 270 degrees is 0, negative 1. And 360, or 2 pi, is 1, 0. Remember cosine sine. Some other very important values are the tangents. Now, tangents are just sine divided by cosine. So tangent of 0 will be sine over cosine 0 over 1. Tangent of 30 degrees, 1/2 divided by square root 3 over 2, is square root 3 over 3. Tan of 45 degrees, any number divided by itself is 1. Tan of 60 degrees is square root 3. And the tan of 90 degrees, sine over cosine, well, you can never divide by 0, so it's undefined. It's also undefined at 3 pi over 2. Yeah, I just answered one of your homework questions. All right, so question number one. Again, find the values of theta between 0 and 2 pi that make each of the following statements true. When is the cosine positive square root 2 over 2? Well, number one, state the reference angle. And all that is it comes from these ordered pairs. Notice the cosine, square root 2 over 2, at 45 degrees, or pi over 4. So part one, my reference angle is 45 degrees, or pi over 4. Part 2, state the quadrant. Well, where is cosine positive? Well, remember, you're all seniors turned crazy. It's positive in 1 and 4. Okay, so what I'm looking for is an angle in 1 and an angle in 4. Well, I already have the angle in 1, it's 45 degrees. But what is the angle in 4 that has a reference angle of 45? Well, that's just 360 minus 45, which would be 315 degrees. So these are the two angles in degrees. Now, number 4, what are those angles in radians? Well, I already have one of them because it was quadrant 1. It's pi over 4. Now remember, any reference angle of 45 has a 4 on the bottom. Well, I'm going to rewrite this as 8 pi over 4 minus my reference angle of pi over 4. So my second answer is 7 pi over 4. All right, and this is what I'm going to ask you to do in all your problems on your homework. So, sine, when is the sine square root 3 over 2? Well, that's at 60 degrees. Right, so number one, my reference angle is 60 degrees or pi over 3. Now, because my answer is negative, that would put this angle theta in either quadrant 3 or 4, because all seniors turn crazy, sine is negative in 3 and 4. So what are the angles in 3 that have a reference angle of 60? So that would be 180 plus 60, because the reference angle is the distance to the x-axis. The x-axis is 180, so that would be 240. And then 360, which is the x-axis, minus 60, which would be a 300-degree angle. Now, what are those in radians? Well, 180 degrees is pi, so pi plus pi over 3, or 3 pi over 3 plus 1 pi over 3 would be 4 pi over 3. And then 360 is 2 pi, so that would be 2 pi minus pi over 3. Well, that would be 6 pi over 3, because that's 2 pi, minus 1 pi over 3 would be 5 pi over 3. All right, now tangent. And I gave you these, and these will definitely help. You see that square root of 3 is at pi over 3, which is 60 degrees. So number one, my reference angle is 60 degrees, which is pi over 3. Now the tangent is negative in 2 and 4. Okay? Tangent is negative in 2 and 4. All seniors turn crazy. Tangent's positive in 1 and 3, negative in 2 and 4. Part 3, state the angles in degrees. What angle in quadrant 2 has a reference angle of 60? Well, to get to quadrant 2, I have to subtract my reference angle from 60, which is my x-axis. So that would be 120 degrees. So what this really means is the tangent of 120 is negative square root 3. And then the other one, quadrant 4, the x-axis is 360. So I subtract my reference angle, and I would get 300 degrees. So the tangent of 360 is negative square root 3. Part 4. What are these in radians? So notice here I subtracted to get into quadrant 2. I'll write something down in a second that might help. And then I subtracted from 360 to get to quadrant 4. So this would be 180, or pi, minus pi over 3. 3 pi over 3 minus 1 pi over 3 is 2 pi over 3. And 360 is like 2 pi, or it is 2 pi, minus pi over 3. 2 pi is 6 pi over 3, minus 1 pi over 3 would be 5 pi over 3. So something that would help you in quadrant 2, we're going to do 180 minus the reference, or pi minus the reference. In quadrant 3, we're going to do the reference, or reference plus 180, or reference plus pi. Or you could do that backwards, it doesn't matter. 180 plus the reference. Over here, we're going to do 360 minus the reference angle, or 2 pi minus the reference angle. All right, two more. Sine of theta equals -1. Well, that's not in a quadrant, because if you look at this ordered pair right here, the sine is -1 at 270 degrees. So technically the reference angle is 90. Or pi over 2. It's not in a quadrant. 270 degrees is on the y-axis, so I'm just going to write y-axis. It's a quadrantal. State the angles. Wow, there's only one where the sine is -1, and there's only one. If there's only one degree measure, there's only one radian measure. So if I put this in my calculator, sine of 270, it would say -1. Let me prove it to you. Sine of 270, -1. All right, last one. Where is the tangent square root 3 over 3? Well, this is why I wrote all these down. Tangent square root 3 over 3 at pi over 6, which is 30 degrees. Okay, when is the tangent positive? The tangent, remember, all seniors turn crazy. The tangent is positive in 3 and in 1, so 1 and 3. What angle gives me this square root 3 over 3? That was pi over 6, or 30 degrees. But it's also positive in 3. Well, remember, quadrant 3, reference plus 180. So 30 plus 180 is 210 degrees. Quadrant 4, because we're in quadrant 1, I just write this down. I don't have to do anything to it. But in quadrant 3, I have to do reference plus pi. So reference plus pi. Pi is the same thing as 6 pi over 6 plus 1 pi over 6. That would be 7 pi over 6. So knowing the answer, here's the answer to the tangent of theta, we can find the angle where that works. So 30 degrees, 210 degrees, which their equivalent radian measures are pi over 6 and 7 pi over 6. There you go. Hope this helps. Please use your notes when you're doing your homework. Have a wonderful day.